Well, we're all having lunch here today. There are actually 8,602 prisoners today that are locked down at the moment having their lunch in their cells. We unlock them at 8 in the morning and we lock them up again at 12. We unlock them at 1 and then they're locked up again at 5. That's pretty much the routine that happens around the 17 prisons across New Zealand. As was said, another 33,000 sometimes upwards of 35,000 people in the community. So about 43,000 people that are in our direct control, or we have some control over whether we're supervising in the community or they are in a prison in New Zealand. Those 8,600 people in prison have 25,000 children at home that have got a parent in prison. That's a big deal. Because those kids aren't getting up in the morning and watching a parent, mostly men, head off to work or do something productive with their life in the way that most of us grew up. They may well be on a weekend visiting mostly a father in prison. So what impact does having all these people in prison have on the next generation of people that are coming through in our society? Because that's a lot of children that are mostly fatherless for a fair bit of the time. 500 of the 8,600 are female prisoners, and that's been an increase over the years, and half of all prisoners are Māori, and that is way disproportionate, as you would appreciate, to our national population. So many of those children, again, disproportionately are Māori children growing up, sort of connected to the correction system, if you like. $1.2 billion a year is what we spend administering the sentences and orders that these people are on and trying to keep you all safe and everyone else from people that are often dangerous and violent and who have got a lot of work to do on themselves if they want to rejoin society in a better way. Nearly 8,000 staff get up every morning and go to work in the Department of Corrections, which makes us, I think, New Zealand's 14th largest employer. So a lot of people are committed and go to work in this place every day. Now they get up and go to work not because they want to lock people down or because they want to particularly monitor them in the community. If you talk to correction staff, the reason they get up and do their job, what motivates them is they think they can change people's lives. And I know this because when I visited some of my staff in hospital, who've sometimes been attacked by a prisoner or two, and you visit them and it's a pretty terrible thing to have to do because their families are very worried for them often. And you ask them why they do this job. They say to you, I do it because I think I make a difference in people's lives. And they also say, I do it because I think it's a great service I can provide in New Zealand to my community. I think they're really brave, and I think they're very courageous in the way that they do their job, and I think they're very compassionate too, because these people get up and do a job that most of us don't want to have to do. And they deal with people that most people have given up on, except for their own families, of course. And I think they do their best to change people's lives. So what do you get for the 1.2 billion? And I think that's the question we have to ask. By the way, New Zealand's largest building project at the moment is the Wellington prison development in South Auckland, where we're building a new prison which will take 1,000 men. We need the facility because we need to upgrade what we've got. And actually we've got nearly 1,000 men located outside of Auckland because we don't have a prison facility big enough in Auckland to accommodate those prisoners closer to home. But gives you a sense of the scale of it, that actually that's our largest project on the go in the country right now. So what do we do for all of that money? Well, we thought that what we should do is set ourselves a large goal, and the government agreed, about reducing reoffending. So it's not much good if all we're good at is containing people and making sure they don't escape from prison. By the way, this is the first year ever that we haven't had anyone escape from prison, which is a great achievement. Someone will head out this afternoon probably, but it doesn't matter. My people always shudder when I say these things. They don't like me. We're not very good at celebrating our successes because we work in an industry that's very high risk. And when it goes wrong really seriously. And the consequences can be quite severe for people. So they worry about me saying these things. But actually, we've got to celebrate when we achieve something. Because I don't know what's going to happen this afternoon. But that's a great achievement. And that's actually years of development across the prison system. Because if you went back 20 years, prisons like Christchurch Men's Prison didn't have a fence around it. It's hard to imagine now if you've ever approached our facilities because they're very high on control and security. So the only significant breach we had of security in this last year was one person who managed to escape from a prison van. And he got away because we didn't handcuff him because he had a broken arm and someone felt sorry for him. So that was a mistake. And I think that highlights kind of the issues that sometimes are faced in the system, is that people do act with compassion, they do try to get it right for people, and they do try to do the right thing. But all the time we're confronted with people that will often try on the system, test out, spot an opportunity and head off and do something. And we've got to balance that with the majority of the people that we work with who actually do want to head home and do want to lead a normal and decent life. So, we've set a goal to reduce reoffending by 25%. What does all of that mean? Well, if we achieve it by 2017, and we're 1 year into it, if we achieve that, there will be 600 fewer people coming back to prison. And there'll be 4,500 fewer people serving a sentence in the community. But most importantly, and the fact I'd like you to take home if you remembered nothing else, is if we achieve this goal, there'll be 18,500 less victims in our country of crime. And that's worth getting up in the morning for. That's worth my 8,000 staff getting up in the morning and going to work for. Because if we can do that, that is a big impact on our society. It takes a long time if you've been a victim of crime to get over that, particularly if it's been a serious crime. So it's good work. We do it with the police, and the police are our key partner, I guess, in reducing crime. But we also do it with a large range of community organisations. Some of you represent the organisations here that we work with, and you're part of this journey. So 25%, it's worth doing. How are we going? Well, we've achieved 10% already, which is great. And, you know, people thought this was a very audacious and unrealistic goal to set. And it might be, if you think about the fact that within 12 months, nearly 40% of all of the people that get released from prison will be back. And if you take it out over a 5-year time frame, you get close on to 2/3, up to 70% of people will return. So the recidivism rate amongst the most difficult people that we deal with is very, very high. And on average, each of those people will have four victims. So they create a big impact across our society. So 10% is a really good gain. And most of that gain to date has been with the work we do with the 35,000 people that are on sentences and orders in the community. So across New Zealand, there are around about 120 probation sites and 2,500 people that work in the probation service, which is part of corrections, that head out into people's homes every day of the week, keep a track on them, talk to them and their families, try to get them connected to positive things, and try to keep them out of trouble. And one of the good things we've done recently is introduce GPS tracking. So 57 people, mostly child sex offenders, on GPS tracking. That means that in our monitoring centre we can watch where they are all the time. Can't see what they're doing, but we do know where they are. And that makes a huge difference if we have to call out the police to re-arrest these people. Surprisingly, so you would think you've got a GPS tracking bracelet on you, so we know exactly where you are. You would think that people wouldn't breach the conditions, wouldn't you? You'd think they wouldn't go into an exclusion zone. And yet 13 of those people have been re-arrested and re-imprisoned already. And they just flagrantly flouted the expectations that were ahead of them. So the system's getting stronger on a security sense, but what about actually rehabilitating people? Because that's the big task. Well, first of all, seems to me that what a lot of these people need is work. And it starts with working in prison. So we have committed to have 3 working prisons. Auckland Women's Prison, Tongariro Prison in the central North Island, and Rolleston Prison in Christchurch. And those 3 prisons, the expectation is that by the end of this calendar year, almost everyone that's in those prison environments will be working. They will be starting to emulate more of a 40-hour week. So I don't care too much whether it's all actual employment or whether they're in education or training. But what I do care about is when I visit prisons and I see people sitting around not doing anything. And a large number of our people are currently in that situation. And they're there because we haven't had a big target to drive us to do something different. And so this target of cutting reoffending by a quarter, which, by the way, no one in the world is prepared to put their name to, because they just don't think it can be done, what it's doing inside the Department of Corrections is driving us to be different. It's driving us to change what we do. And so we've got to get these people active and engaged and involved in things that will change their lives. And work is foundational and it's fundamental. So we all get up, or our families do, or partners do, and they get up and we go to work. And when you go to work, you've got a place to go, you've got a level of independence, you've got new associates, and you've got people that want you, and you can make a contribution. If you don't do that every day, and you're on a welfare benefit, or you're languishing in prison, or you're living off somebody else's means, then you never create that worth for yourself. So getting these guys jobs has been really important. So we have a large number that are on release to work programs, and there are many employers across the country that support us to do that. And they take these people on, and some of them will head out each morning and they'll go to work. You wouldn't notice a difference, and they'll be back in prison in the afternoon and be locked down. That is one of the most successful programs we run. 50% of the people nearly that participate in that program don't come back to prison because they start to normalise and do things that the rest of us get to do, and their families get to see them do that as well. But the real challenge is getting them engaged on the inside and then making sure that we've got jobs for them on the transition. It's very hard if you're a prisoner to write up a CV. And I've noticed this. I've seen people on the inside doing things that, working in print shops, doing automotive engineering courses, working on farms, whatever it is that we have at our disposal, and there's a large range of things that we teach people to do. Trades training, our trades training investment is huge. In Christchurch, we have 60 people in Christchurch Men's Prison every day participating in trades training activities where they will get full NZQA qualifications. And they're doing it in plumbing, in painting, in roofing, drain laying, all those kind of industries where we need employees. And we're turning those people out with qualifications. And when you see these guys working in some of these trades training programs, of which I have to say some of the facilities are better than anything we see in the private sector, and by the way, they turn up every day. And they do their homework. And when we send them out to a release to work program, they turn up drug and alcohol free. These guys achieve wonderfully well. And the thing that sort of sparks me and the people that work for me is that for a lot of these guys, they've never ever had a certificate. They've never had something that recognised that they were worth anything or could achieve anything. And it's really sad, isn't it, that they get that in prison, where their life is completely controlled, where they're probably sharing with somebody else. And by the way, that's not that much fun. Because if you're sharing with someone else, they'll probably give you a few pointers on when you get to go to the bathroom and not. You know, and you're in a small confined space, smaller than most of the bedrooms that our kids live in, with a toilet, and you eat in there, and if you're really lucky, you might even have a shower in there, but that's not many of our facilities actually. So, you know, it's very contained. There aren't many privileges in the prison environment. So one of the things we can offer is to make sure we give people a chance to change. So, work, jobs, drug and alcohol. Look, 60% of the people that come to us have got drug and alcohol related problems, and they range on degrees of seriousness. Increasingly, those people are getting access to programs they never had before. Nearly 1,000 people today are participating in a intensive drug and alcohol program in prison. And actually, you know, the source of offending, I think, for the majority of people is drug and alcohol fueled, mixed with the fact that there is so much violent crime in New Zealand. So violence fueled by drug and alcohol. That's what drives it. You meet these people in prison oftentimes and it's hard to work out that they're any different from the rest of us. It's the first time they've really been straight and not substance affected. And they can think and participate in things and they want to re-engage with their families. The big challenge is on the transition. When they leave prison, too many of them come back because they fall away again. Because their associates haven't changed, they've changed, their families haven't changed. They go back into the same place. And if we don't get them jobs, so I really push this job thing. So if you're an employer out there, you can join with us, choose the ones you want to work with, and grab them while they're clean. Because actually they can come with a lot of skills and hit the ground running. Because if we don't get them jobs as one of those key planks we have to put down for people, they will definitely be back. Jobs, housing, and families are critical to all of our successes. And more so for these people. Often families have abandoned them because they are so difficult to deal with. One of the good things we're doing is we've just invested $10 million for the next 2 years in what we're calling out-of-the-gate services, which means that for those prisoners that, if you're in prison for a really long time, you'll actually get a lot of money spent on you trying to make you better. You'll get access to almost everything that's going. But if you're in for a short time, actually you often end up on a revolving wheel where you keep getting picked up. We never really get you into a rehabilitation program because they take quite a long time to complete. And so you hate to sort of cycle around. So these out-of-gate services we're purchasing from community-based organisations, corrections won't deliver them, but we're buying $10 million worth of these services. Organisations like the Salvation Army will be able to come and meet these people before they leave prison and try and support them on their way and on their journey back out. It won't solve the problem, but it will take some people away from us and hopefully keep them out of crime. One of the other things I wanted to mention on this is the involvement of the private sector. And so it's always a bit tricky when you run a core government agency to introduce private sector partners into your business. And with the development in Wiri and with the current outsourcing contract we have for Mount Eden Prison with Serco, by 2015, 25% of all of our core custodial work will be done in the private sector by a private sector provider. So all those prisoners are still my responsibility. Those contracts are my responsibility, but actually another international provider will be delivering those services. And they have to do, the challenge we've set them is to do even better than we're doing. So we've set a goal about cutting reoffending by a quarter. In order for them to earn all of the money available to them on the incentives available on that contract, they have to do better than we do. And the idea about this is to drive innovation within the correction system, so that as taxpayers, it's not just me and my management team that are the only ones that have got to generate a set of ideas or bring a culture to the way corrections works in New Zealand. We're bringing another whole organisation and their culture and thinking and their expertise to try and drive a problem. They'll do some things better than us, we'll do some things better than them. But if you think about it, another way, it's hard to imagine in New Zealand us only ever having one airline again. It's hard for us to imagine only ever having one telephone company again, or one TV channel. Well, if you've only got one provider delivering all of your corrections system when it's worth 1.2 billion a year, I don't think you know whether you're getting enough value out of it, because there's not someone to drive us, to push us, to make us run faster. So I think this has been a good innovation. It'll have its ups and downs, but I think if you think long run, this is good for New Zealand's correction system and better value for taxpayers. And I might just, before I head over for questions, just comment on one initiative I think which is pretty exciting for us. And it's a reflection of the fact that we're pushing much harder to, I guess, get out of our box and not be scared. When you work in these organisations, for 4.5 years I led Child, Youth and Family. It's been 2.5 years at corrections. My phone's on 24/7. I get texts all through the weekend and through the evening when things go wrong in the place, just so that I can keep on top of things, often publicly, as well as make sure my people are doing the right thing. It's a very live business. It never goes away, and the risks are ever present. And the risks are ever present that someone will do something crazy and hurt someone or kill someone in a way that none of us expected. And probably it'll be someone that we're dealing with, and we'll have to front that. Or possibly it'll be one of my staff, and a staff member got killed in 2010 who worked in a prison. So what sits around us is this really high-risk environment. And for the people that lead in the Department of Corrections, they live with that risk all of the time. So when you work in an organisation like that, and Child, Youth and Family is not much different, organisations can become very inward-looking and can get quite scared, because when those bad things happen, it is quite scary, because people lose their jobs and all the rest of it. So people start to focus inside on themselves. And what I've tried to do is open that out. So we can't be scared, because those things will happen. They're going to happen. I don't know when they'll happen, but they will. And it won't matter how well we manage the place or how poorly we manage the place. Sometime someone will do something that outrages all of us. And what we have to do is front that up when it happens and get on and do our best to fix it and learn from it. And that's all we can do. But hiding and being scared and not engaging with others and not letting people into the environment actually won't build a better system for New Zealand. And that's not the sort of leadership that I'm promoting in the Department of Corrections. So we're probably more open than we've ever been. It's hard to get out, but you can come in now if you want to come see us. And so Martin Bosley, Wellington on a plate. One of my staff suggested that we enter Wellington on a plate. So, I've got an email thing and people send me things every day. They can ask for our question anytime they want to. And someone said, why don't we enter Wellington on a plate? Because we spend $50 million a year, by the way, on food, feeding people. So you think about it, 27,000 meals will get produced today in prison. So we're quite good at it. And so we entered Wellington on a plate, and Martin Bosley is joined with us on that. And he's been out coaching the guys in the kitchen at Rimataka Prison. And we're in this event, and you can't get a ticket now, they sold out sort of straight away. And we're going to run 2 nights where we bring the community in, and they can spend some time in prison, and we'll feed them up and show them what we can do. What a great initiative. Good on him, because he said that he had the same prejudices a lot of New Zealanders have. And we took him out for a visit through the prison. He was surprised at the positive things that were happening. He was shocked by some of the harder parts of prison life as well, and some of the tougher parts of the jail. But what he's done is got him behind us, and we're taking that risk. And we would never have taken that risk once. We'd have been too scared to, because something might go wrong. Whereas I think actually we've got to do it. And we've got to open it up, and we've got to show the men that are out there that actually people will back them. If they're prepared to put the work in, that will get them behind them and give them another go, and that they're worth it. Because if we don't do that, the 25,000 children that all belong to these men and women in prison will end up there too. And our responsibility is to change that. Thank you. Well, I think it's just a basic respect and decency thing. So we treat people with respect, and we expect respect back. And if we don't get that mutual thing happening, then there are consequences for that. And I don't think it's any different in any sort of employment relationship. And I don't think it's any different with these people. I met a guy that actually was on TV. John Campbell interviewed him, and when we took him out into the prison, and he'd been there for 10 years, and John Campbell was interviewing him, and he was shocked because he said he had another 7 years to go. And he sort of couldn't conceive of how you could spend this much time. And he had a positive attitude. He got a painting qualification and another qualification, and he was really looking forward to going to work. So I think it's a very good question. People leave highly motivated from an artificial environment, where actually everything's done for, life's organised. They can't really get into that much trouble. They can create disorder, but that's about as bad as it can get. They can't really do anything much more than that. So when they do come out, I think the bigger transition is how they manage their personal lives. Work's probably going to be a safe place, and you can probably get alongside them. If they're younger, give them a bit of a hand with managing their girlfriends and all the rest of it. It's kind of the basic things that happen for people when they're at work, where they've got other associates around them that give them a fair go. And the thing we've got to do is be honest with you about who you're getting and what they've done. Otherwise, you've got no chance. On the education front, just one example, the Open Polytechnic and ourselves have a contract where they'll provide 1,000 places for education for offenders in prison or in the community. And I think we're a few hundred into that, so we signed that up only a couple of months ago. So there are those type of programs, and for those that are really illiterate, Mike Williams, who heads up the Howard League, former president of the Labour Party, has been a great supporter of ours, and he has got retired teachers mainly, a group of them who go work with prisoners and help them to read books, and they teach them to read books that they can read to their children. So for the first time, some of these people can read a book to their own children, and of course that can be, that's the beginning of changing their life. Just it's like all things, how many people here trying to give up to lose weight? and it's sort of up and down, right? You feel really good, and then you go back, and but hopefully you never go all the way back to the kind of time when you really needed to do something with your life and change it. Same for these people that are offenders. It's a long cycle. If you've managed to end up in prison, it's pretty bad. Unless you're some sort of white collar criminal, the rest of your activity's been pretty bad. Your family's pretty bad to get there fundamentally. So it's a long haul out of it. You don't sort of just go from that sort of level of offending to being really clean. So it's a long journey. So teaching to read a book, it's a big step up. With the iwi Māori thing, there's a heavy involvement in connection with iwi with prisons. I think the reality is that those groups struggle as much as we do to know what to do. 32% of all prisoners in New Zealand are in a gang. If you're in Hawkesbury prison, 52% of all those prisons are gang members. Most of the most recidivist offenders in our country are gang members. The people that perpetrate the most violence against my staff are gang members. The people that succeed at a very high level in all the programs we deliver in prison are gang members. It's not the individuals, it's what they're part of. That's the problem. So I think Māori groups very keen to engage, but they struggle as well. And you can't load them up with people that are really difficult just because they're Māori, because they'll fail too. It's all fine, because we got the law changed. Yes, actually, I was just with colleagues in Australia, across the Australian states and ourselves. We join up every 6 months as heads of the service and talk about what we're doing. And we were in Tasmania last week. And the Northern Territory are just introducing a smoking ban. They're going to do it in Tasmania. Other parts of Australia want to get. They've been a bit scared because I think they had a prison burnt down last time they tried it. So, but what's happened, of course, is New Zealand's done it, and so it's kind of up the ante a wee bit. So they're all moving, and our most outspoken maximum security prisoner, Arthur Taylor, who managed to get himself on TV, far too many liberties for these people, frankly, that are at that end of the system. Dangerous people, hold people up at gunpoint, lead drug rings, have opportunities to be in court every other week, taking us to task. Took us to court. He won. We lost. The judge said that the smoking ban was unlawful, and even made a comment that it was inhumane. So I'm not sure it's more humane to watch people die of lung cancer or not. But and so we got the law changed. So government pushed that through. Wasn't altogether unhelpful because we got some other changes off the back of it, which tidied the system up a bit. So no, it won't go back because it's now a feature of the Corrections Act. It's not just my ruling anymore, where we thought we could do that. We thought we could regulate it for it, we couldn't. Judges said no, it would have to be a law. But I find it very interesting. So this seemed to me to be a sensible, practical initiative. 70% of all fires in prisons were created by people that had access to lighters. So you don't want a fire in a prison or in any institution because you can't get people out. You can't just take them all out and single them on the grass. So fire in a prison is a really bad thing because my staff have to go and rescue the people that often set the fires. And I saw this when I saw in the women's prison in Christchurch, 2 of my staff have to go in and save a person who had set their bunk on fire. Now they risked their own lives, and all of the other prisoners that were locked down, they had nothing to do with it. They were all threatened as well. You saw this in the Spring Hill incident recently. We had a riot, and actually the prisoners were never going to escape the facility, so none of us were at any risk. But 88 people who were locked down would have died. So we had to go in, and we had to take those 27 people on, and they all fought us, get them out of the way, and then release the other 88 that were all locked up. Some of whom were suffering from smoke inhalation. So prisoners don't often think these things through. That's why they're there. But smoking, what other workplace in New Zealand can you walk into where people are smoking? So why should my staff have to put up with that? And why should a non-smoking prisoner have to put up with it? And why should we expose ourselves to those fire risks? And actually, just to finish on that, so there are security benefits, but the health benefits are vast. And think about the 25,000 children. Those 25,000 children will be some of the hardest to reach children for our health and education system in New Zealand, because they're tied up with families that are really at the bottom end of the scale. And one thing that their parent can say to them is, I don't smoke. You don't have to bring me smokes in. You don't have to spend the money buying cigarettes for me in prison. So I think it's been hugely positive, and I think we were incredibly brave, and we did it well.
Yeah.